on the Oath Keepers by referring to you as terrorists again. Is
and to be honest with you, had the mayor been African American down there, I'm sure he would have called us racist. Or I mean, if the people on the city town council or whatever had been African American, I'm sure they would have called us racist. And what I think is so interesting to point out here, I want to point this out to you. Jose Guerrero, the media, the local media, if you notice, they didn't pay much mind to us going down there and supporting them. And a lot of people were like, well, I thought you guys were racist. Oh, really? Well, what gave you that idea? Because we support the Constitution? And they couldn't figure out why we were going down there to the aid of a Hispanic gentleman that happened to be defending himself and his family. And then a lot of people label us as far-right wingers. Okay, well, let me answer that question, or answer that one. If I'm a far-right winger, then why am I going to the aid of a Democrat mayor who voted for President Obama and is happy to be a Democrat? If I'm a far-right winger. See, that's what the people fail to realize. You got them. They fail to realize that Constitution, okay,
balances everything out.
That Constitution that I've taken an oath to isn't, well, if you're of this color, if you're of this walk, if you're of this religion, if you're of that, it has nothing to do with that. My oath is to the Constitution. I don't see color. I don't see religion.
I want to stress that. I've been called anti-Semitic because I tell you, Israel's got 400 nuclear weapons and Saddam Hussein didn't have any. That doesn't make me anti-Semitic. I put pictures of Aaron Russo on the cover of my magazine when he was running for governor. I don't. The Constitution that we took an oath to defend, folks, says you have the right to worship any way you want. So if you wanna go beat your head against the Wailing Wall, knock yourself out. You want to get down on your knees. You want to get down on your knees and stick your nose in the dirt and pray to Mecca. I'll even try to keep the Saint Bernard off of you.
Yeah.
But and you want to get down on your knees and pray to God for salvation because you think you've been born into eternal sin. Well, just don't expect me to get down on my knees with you, but I will defend your right to sit there and pray, or have a Christmas tree, or or worship any way that you want.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about. And that goes for color as well. It doesn't matter what color of skin anyone is, in my view. As long as they are a law-abiding citizen and so forth, it makes no difference to me. I don't care. I don't care about the religion end of it. It just makes no difference to me. I took an oath to the Constitution. I'm going to defend you all. That's my obligation. That's my duty. And I will do it until the day I die. That oath isn't gone when you take the uniform off for the last time and hang it in the closet. The oath doesn't come on and off like a garment in the closet. That oath is 24/7, 365 from the day you take it to the day you die. And that's just the way it is.
That's right. That's right. And that's folks, that's what we're faced with here. I mean, this Mike, you've really given a great plan here. A great outline of what the Oath Keepers are supposed to be about. I mean, this ain't a special organization. I mean, this should include. And I walked into the FBI office and dropped a bundle of my magazines down on their desk. I said, "There's enough here for everyone in your office." This is why, right when they were putting the fusion centers together. Remember the Homegrown Terrorist Act?
Yeah.
I said I brought you a copy of my magazine for every man in your place here, because there is no difference between us. You're the FBI, I'm the press. I'm depressed. But we both took that oath to the Constitution, and that's all I'm interested in.
That's all I'm interested in. That's exactly right. I agree with you, brother. That's what makes the Oath Keepers unique. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people in the government community, if you will, don't understand it. And it's sad because they took an oath too. And you know, I don't know if they changed the rules since I got out. Maybe they're making these nuns take an oath to the UN Charter. I'm not sure. But if they took an oath to the Constitution, maybe they rewrote it for them to take it to it. I don't know. But the way they act, or the way they conduct their businesses, and the way they do things, isn't constitutional, number one. And number two, they're not upholding their oath very well. So the question was a little while back, what do you do when you realize that your government has become Marxist or has become communist, and in some facets even fascist? And my response to that is that we do what we're doing with Jose Garena. We do what we do with Quartzsite. And we find the next town and we go there. Because in order to change it, if you want to use the word change, in order to save it more or less, basically, it's got to start locally. It has to start locally. If you're going to make a difference, if you want to save the country, it has to start locally. Because you start locally, then you get to the county, then you get to the state. And by the time it gets to the federal government, then it's easy. But you have to start locally. Corruption and tyranny must meet with resistance. Our forefathers instructed us of this. Our forefathers warned us of this day and age that we are living in. In the Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
And different readings. If you read those, read some of those founding fathers' documents. They warned us of this time. I think they knew that eventually that it could happen. That's why they wrote what they did. That's why they designed the Constitution the way they did. You know, a lot of our forefathers, and I wish I could name them to you right now off the top of my head, but it's still kind of early. A lot of our forefathers argued whether or not our Bill of Rights should be included in our Constitution, because they argued the fact that if we don't put it in the Constitution, then somebody will go after them as amendments. Well, I think they had a pretty valid point. When we can see the attacks on the First Amendment today, we can see the attacks on the Second Amendment today, the Third Amendment today. Well, the third one we probably still have. But I mean, the Fourth Amendment on down, even all the way down to the 10th Amendment, we can see the attacks that have been made on those amendments.
That's right. And Thomas Jefferson warned us in 200 years ago, if you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquered. And I see a lot of this corporate control, because this whole thing, the idea of the Oath Keepers being a terrorist is being portrayed on the news without the news coming down and covering your speeches or anything that you're doing. I mean, they're just, it's propaganda. Our news has turned into propaganda.
Well, you're hitting on a very valuable point with that propaganda. I have said this many times, and some people look at me like with those big silver dollar eyes and go, wow, I can't believe you just said that, but I'll go ahead and say it today. I believe Joseph Goebbels is looking up from hell right now with a smile on his face. Because what we are seeing today with the use of propaganda is in its finest. It's absolutely in its finest. They perfected the art. Joseph Goebbels started it, but they have perfected the art.
I have said they have refined the art of slavery to the point that the slaves don't know they're slaves. I'm not a slave, man. I can go get my pickup and go get a beer. Watch.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a good point there. A lot of people wake up and go to sleep and think that they're free. Well, you know, it's sad, but I would really like for them to rethink their thinking on that, because if they think they're free, they're far from it. Far from it. What's happening? If you look at, now it's important to know. This is an important note. Benjamin Franklin, the gentleman, was born in Philadelphia, owned a home in Philadelphia, and reluctantly, on the request of his countrymen, was sent to London for 20 years. For 20 years, he didn't come back to the United States. For 20 years, he went and sat with the king. For 20 years, he went and sat with British Parliament. And at that time, Benjamin Franklin wasn't trying to win our independence from Great Britain. What he was trying from the crown, what he was trying to do was win its autonomy, something similar as to Canada. That's what he was hoping for, is to get some type of autonomy like Canada. Now, for 20 years, he reasoned with them. 20 years, that's an awful long time to reason with someone, to try and avert what eventually happened. Imagine being Benjamin Franklin on the day when the king told him you're a treasonous. And he fled to England in the middle of the night, fearing for his life. Boarded a ship and headed back towards America and never went back. And of course, the American Revolution kicked off. But imagine what went through that man's mind when he knew that it had gone point to pass with no return. So the violence was imminent. He wanted to avoid that. Benjamin Franklin didn't want American blood being spilled, because he knew that's what it would be. And he tried everything he could to avoid that. And history has reflected that for several months after he returned from England, he was very quiet, very solitude. I think today we would call that depressed. Because he tried. He tried to reason with him, and he was unsuccessful for 20 years. And when it had finally gone past the point of no return, well, here we are today, the United States of America. But now we're in the same position 235 years later. Right now, history is no different than what it was back then. I think a lot of this in this country have been trying to reason with the crown, quote unquote, for a long time.
Well, actually, you've actually hit it pretty well when you say the crown. Folks, there are 3 cities that rule the world, and one of them is the Vatican, one of them is Washington, D.C., and one of them is the crown city of London within and actually we're talking about one small area that's basically the financial district of the England, and the Queen of England has to ask permission from the Lord Mayor to go into that. So I've said that the whole New World Order thing is kind of a scam to make you think there's something new up their sleeves. But the money changers that Jesus ran out of the temple are still with us. They just changed the name of the temple. They call it the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England now. And the people that are paying our police officers now under the guidelines of the fusion centers they're the communists.
They really are. They really are. And I think up until the last 10 years, they used to be real quiet, real secretive in how they did it. They didn't want to be heard or said or known or out in the view or anything like that. But today they're blatant. They get on national TV shows, talk shows, and they'll tell you flat out, I'm to the left of the liberals. I'm a socialist. And they'll tell you, they'll say that on TV. And we all heard it. I can't remember the gentleman's name who said it.
The Communist Party, I just have to interrupt you for a second. The Communist Party has just endorsed Barack Obama.
No surprise there. Right now, the Marxists are having a heyday in our country. And see, that's something that's something that a lot of people need to understand, okay? When Germany, at the close of World War I, Germany was under the Kaiser. That was a socialist democrat government. Okay? Now, with that socialist democrat government, what happened? They opened the door to the Nationalist Socialist Party, the Nazis.
Yes.
That government opened the door to them. It allowed them to gain a foothold. And that's what happens when you have a social democracy. When 51% of the people rule.
Yeah, I love you mentioned Benjamin Franklin. I loved his response to the lady that asked him, what form of government have you wrought for us, Mr. Franklin? He said, a constitutional republic, ma'am, if you can keep it.
If you can keep it. And that's something that, you know, our government, or a lot of politicians, I should say, not our government, but a lot of politicians and a lot of other people otherwise, you go out on the street today and you poll people. Just go out there on one afternoon and poll people and ask them what's our form of government. I guarantee you 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, will tell you that we're a democracy.
That's right.
And we are not a democracy.
That's programming. That's the programming, you know. I love, one of my favorite things to do, Mike, is to catch a politician out there in a park somewhere with television cameras running, talking about our great democracy. I'll step up and say, excuse me, sir, could you tell me what Congress changed our constitutional republic to a democracy? Could you tell me when that happened? Could you tell me who was responsible for that?
Yeah, I didn't get the memo on that either, you know. That's one memo I didn't get.
Yeah, it's a strange phenomenon. All the cameras shut off, the politician disappears, and you got a bunch of people standing around and going, what just happened?
Yeah, and that's a fact. And people forget that we are a constitutional republic. That's what we are. And that was they did it that way so that the quote majority couldn't rule.
That's right.
So that you couldn't have 51% of the population enslaving the rest. That's why they did that. That's exactly why they designed the government the way they did. And so that a ruling class cannot control. Well, here we are, 235 years later.
I think it was last 4th of July, I read the whole Declaration of Independence on my show, and with very few changes, you know, a name, you know, and instead of if you said Mexicans instead of Indians, you know, it was what was happening today. What's happening right now? We're still fighting the same battles. You know, our founding fathers fought the New World Order of their day. The sun never sets on the English Empire.
That's right.
And we're still fighting the same battle here today. And what's the oldest maxim? Do you know what the oldest maxim in warfare is, Mike?
The oldest maximum of war?
In warfare, yes, sir. It's called divide and conquer.
Yeah, I was just going to say division. Exactly. I mean, you see that every day, you know, because you listen, like for example, and without mentioning the gentleman's name who was running for president, but the other day I saw where, oh my goodness, a certain sect of people in America are endorsing him for president. Well, okay, you know, but see, what people do is they go, oh my God, you know, and then the fear-mongering comes along. Well, how could they be, you know, the point is that liberty pertains to us all. Liberty doesn't mean my way or the highway. Liberty doesn't mean it's good for me and my folks, but if you're not in part of that, it doesn't apply to you. And so a tactic of warfare, the main tactic of warfare, as you pointed out, is division. You divide the people. By dividing the people, you win. It's just that simple. And it's important to note down here in Quartzsite, Arizona, what we have going on down here. There are many organizations involved in there. And, you know, there's quote, left-wing organizations that are involved in this, and there's, quote, right-wing organizations that are involved in this. If you want to call the Tea Party a right-wing organization, so be it. If you want to refer to the Cops Watch organization as liberals, so be it. But the fact of the matter is, though, is that these people are coming together. They're putting their left and right ideologies, if you will, aside. And they're standing together against corruption. They're standing with their fellow citizens. And they're saying enough is enough.
You know,
because
somebody just said something about standing against the New World Order. My response was, you know, I don't want to defeat the New World Order. I want to take it over. You know, this whole thing, divide and conquer. You're a conservative. Well, I'm a liberal. You know, I'm a Republican. You know, I'm a Democrat. No, you are a human being. You're an American, and we've got a standard. We set the standard for freedom and liberty around the country.
Right.
And
absolutely right.
You know, if we walk away from that, then everybody that ever died in the war, everybody that ever died serving their country, or anybody that ever died from these socialist, communist, tyrannical bastards, then we got to stand up and resist that. And one of the problems we've got is how do you fight evil without becoming evil?
Well, how you do that is very simple, actually.
Good.
It isn't quite as complicated as people would think. The way you combat all that is simply abide by the Constitution.
Play by the rules.
Play by the rules. Go back to the basics. It's that simple. That Constitution is our saving grace. Now, there's a lot of people that are running for president right now. There's a president currently. There's a lot of people who think in the future they're going to run for the president. And I'm sure some of them, maybe not all of them, and certainly not all of them, but some of them, I'm sure, think that they're the savior of the United States, or want to be the savior of the United States. And see, that's what tyranny is. Tyranny is his mind thinking that they can control everything and everybody else and impose their will upon everybody and make it right. Well, that isn't the case. Our only saving grace right now is our Constitution. It's our birthright.
That's right.
And that's the bottom line. That's how simplistic it really is. There's a lot of different things out there. You know, a lot of people. Yeah, I've heard people say, well, you know, maybe we should just march on Washington, you know, and have a protest. Well, that's fine. There's been a lot of protests over the years. I'm not sure if that accomplishes much, because it's a little hard when there's no politicians in Washington when they're all playing golf. And everybody's out, you know, out in the street saying, hey, we want our rights and liberties and our Constitution adhered to. So I'm not sure if that's the actual right approach, because it doesn't really accomplish much. But now, on the other hand, if on a local level, you start demanding that our Constitution be adhered to and followed, I feel that's probably the most effective way. Of course, that's just my outlook on it, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I feel that's probably the most effective anyway.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that. And now this Quartzsite thing, this thing that's happening in Quartzsite, exactly, have you guys talked about how you're going to structure this? Are you going to allow the mayor and the police chief to be heard in front of the public? Now, you know, there's going to be a lot of bikers there, a lot of veterans there, and I'm going to be there. So, you know,
absolutely.
I want to hear both sides of the story. I told the story from the side of the people that were killed there at Waco, or the ones that survived the death march on Waco, and you know, I've also heard from the FBI. A friend of mine was in the FBI who just died. Ted Gunderson, by the way, folks, is gone now, and he was a good friend of mine for years, for many years. But this is going to be a public forum, so we're not just going to. We can hear from both sides. We can hear from you as you said. There's going to be liberals, and we're going to and so-called right. I was fairly comfortable being called a right-wing radical under Clinton, but after the real right-wing radicals got in under Bush, I don't know. I think I became a liberal. I just don't know.
I think so too, because they scared the hell out of me. You know. A Marxist is one thing, okay, but a Nazi is another. And, you know, both of them are two sides to an evil coin, if you ask my opinion. But I'll tell you this much, fringe socialism that we're experiencing today, I'd much rather combat than outright fascism. Because the gay folks are willing to take up arms and kill people now, you know. I'm not saying the Marxists probably aren't feeling the same way, but, you know, we've seen in history what they're capable of on both sides. I mean, they're both, you know, the blood on both of their hands is amazing, and if you look back through history and how the amount of it is just unreal. But, you're right, I agree with you on that. It's kind of scary to see the far right do what they do. It really is. It's frightening. Is the best word I can say to that.
But again, you have pointed out the one surfboard that we've got, the one balance beam. It's called the Constitution, folks. It's what this show's always been about. It's what the Free Americans always been about. And you know, I think we can provide if we can deal with our problems in this country, then we can help all the other countries, not with foreign aid, but by setting an example of losing these people that are trying to drain America and drain your patriotism and drain your energy. We've got energy vampires out there. That's a subject for another thing, because I believe if we generate our own energy rather than buying from the big boys, we'd be a hell of a lot better off. You're listening to the Free American. It's freeamerican.com, and go there. I got books out. And if you support me by buying my books, I can support the Oath Keepers and everybody else out there that's trying to make a difference on behalf of the people. Mike Frye, thank you for being with me, and I urge everybody to, the links to the Oath Keepers there and to the information for the rally are there. I'd like to see a lot of people there. I'm going to take a trip.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure, and to all the American people out there, get that Constitution down off of the shelf, dust it off, read it, because it's our only saving grace.
And if you need one, folks, I got a whole stack of them here. It's called the Citizen's Handbook. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Completed.